Well, hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. It's my pleasure to be here with you guys today. You're in for a bit of a treat because if you've ever wondered, how the heck can I use my brain, but use my brain in a way that enables me to have the most success I possibly can in my life? You might be experiencing some problems. You might be trying to figure out, how do I achieve my goals? Or there may be some frustrations in your life and wondering, what do I need to do to use this gray matter or this brain of mine to be able to figure out how I get past all of these things? Well, like I said, you're in for a bit of a treat today because my fellow Kiwi here, I've just found out that Liam is also a New Zealander, Kiwi just like me, but is currently traveling around France on a boat, which is kind of cool. Has been working on how to figure all of this stuff out. How do I figure out the secrets of being able to use my brain in the right way to be able to get the results and achieve what it is that I want in my life? He's also the host of a podcast called Using Your Brain for Success, and he is the author of Rebalancing Your Brain for Success too, and also the creator of Neurostate Rebalancing. So I can't wait to hear what Liam's got to say and how we can utilize this amazing machine that we have called our own brains to our advantage and using it in the right way to have success, not just in your business, but across your family and your life. So welcome to the show, Liam. It's fantastic to have you here.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks very much for having me.
You're
It's great
most
to be
welcome.
here.
Well, as I was reading your bio and doing some research on you, I know that you've had some challenges in your past that have obviously led you to a point where you had those challenges in your life and you were figuring out, what the heck do I do next? And those were some pivotal moments that have led you to be doing what you're doing today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Okay, well, the pivotal moment happened in my mid-40s, but before then, what I had spent my life doing was studying success, probably like most of, if not, or many of your listeners anyway. And I tried
Hmm.
lots of different things because I was always consumed by this idea that I wanted to be successful in my life. I wanted to be the best that I could be and have freedom to really have a great life. And I pursued lots of different things. And I started off with religion, and was told by my parents and my teachers, because I had a religious upbringing, I was told, well, if you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, what you do is you ask God for what you want and you pray for it and God will give it to you. I really
Hmm.
tried that a lot. I remember as a child, actually, I was very driven as a child even. And I remember saying to myself, not even really realizing at the time, but I thought, I'm going to test God on this idea. And I remember going to church every day for a month. And it was 7 o'clock in the morning mass. And I went along as, I think I must have been 10 or 11. And I thought, I'm going to ask God for this one thing. And I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was to win a competition at school or, something like that.
Hmm.
And I thought, if this works, I'm going to see if it works. And I asked God for
Hmm.
this every day for a month. I went to mass, and I didn't get it. And I thought, what is this prayer thing? Maybe it doesn't work. And I looked around my teachers and my parents and the people in the church, and I thought, actually, they're not getting all of the things they want either, because they seem just like everybody else. They've got problems, stress. They don't seem
Hmm.
particularly more happy or successful. So I thought, well, maybe that's not the answer. And then I moved on to other things, and I thought, well, maybe getting an education. Somebody said, if you want to be happy and successful, get an education, become an expert at something. So I went to university. I studied for 7 years and became quite an expert on a particular area of classical music, actually. But again, I noticed my professors, my teachers, although they were very knowledgeable, they weren't any happier than anyone else. They weren't any more successful. So I thought, well, maybe this isn't the answer. Maybe education isn't what it is, isn't the answer. And then someone told me, well, get your own business. That's the way to be happy and successful. Set up your own business, make lots of money. It'll give you freedom, all of those things. So that's what I did. And I actually went in, my first business was in the wine industry. Actually, I set up a wine retail and mail order and importing business, and it was really successful. And it certainly gave me a lot more money and a lot more opportunity to do some great things. But I had lots of stress and problems still in my life. In fact, I probably had more problems and more stress.
Yeah.
And as I worked my way through various businesses, and I've had 18 businesses throughout my life so far, as I worked my way through them, yes, I gained more success. Yes, I had more freedom in some ways, but I also had lots of stress and problems. And I got to the point of thinking that, or hearing this, that I was told, well, problems and stress, they're just part of the game. They're a natural consequence of success. And you have to learn how to deal with problems and stress in your life. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds reasonable, because that's actually how my life is. So maybe this idea that I can live this free life without problems, without stress, really feeling in control of my life and really feeling joy most of the time, maybe that's unrealistic. Maybe it's a stupid idea. And I've since proven to myself that it's not a stupid idea. In fact, not only are problems and stress not part of the territory, they're not a natural part of who we are. And they're just a sign that we're doing something wrong. And I'll talk about that later, if you like, about the brain, but how that works. But anyway, I was going to the seminars, I was reading the books, I was doing the courses, I was listening to all of the recordings of hypnotic tapes to reprogram your mind and change your beliefs and change your thoughts and do all of these things. I was trying all these different techniques. I was setting my goals. I was being conscious of my thoughts. I was reading my affirmations. I was doing all of these things. And again, I'd have to say, were they really working for me? And I looked at the other people at the seminars that I used to go to, and I thought, is it working for them as well? We're all here. None of us are that happy. None of us are really, is this working? Anyway, something happened to me in my mid-40s that should never have happened, because here I was, a bit of an expert in success by this stage. I could quote all of the books. I had learned many techniques. I'd also learned spiritual techniques as well, and spiritual ideas. So I had a ton of information in my head about how to be successful, how to set goals and all that sort of thing. And then something happened that should never have happened. And that is, I lost everything. And I became homeless. I literally had to move in with my elderly mother, sleep on the couch in her small apartment, her small flat. And I thought, why has this happened to me? That was my first reaction. Why is this happening to me? Because I've learned all this stuff about how to be in control of your life, how to be the master of your life. And all of a sudden, I felt completely like I had no control over my life. I had people ringing me wanting money that I didn't have, and all of these awful things were happening to me. I thought, this is crazy. This shouldn't have happened to me. Anyway, so as I rebuilt my life, as I got, unraveled all of the mess and got through it all, as you do, I noticed my life was happening in quite a different way. And one of the first things that happened was I attracted a different sort of relationship. And the person I attracted was completely different to anyone I'd had a relationship with before. There were no problems. There was no drama. There was no, misunderstandings and great upsets all the time, which had sort of been my background with relationships, if you like. And so things were going a lot more smoothly in that regard. And in terms of business and income and opportunities, instead of me having to go out there and find them, they sort of found me. It was really strange. People would show up and say, hey, Liam, here's an idea. Why don't you do this? And I'd go, that's a great idea. I'll do it. And things sort of fell into place a lot more easily. And I was noticing I was starting to make really good money again. The money I needed, nothing ridiculous, not 20 million a year or anything like that, thank goodness, but enough money to actually do what I really wanted to do with my life. And I started to find I was doing things that I really had always dreamt about doing. And I was also doing things that I'd never thought about doing, but were great, and I really loved it. So I was living this really enjoyable life. And the best part about it of all, I thought, was, hang on, what's going on here? Because I don't really have any problems. I don't really have any stress. Sure, there's the odd thing I deal with, and I wouldn't call it a problem, but you have to put an effort. I was putting in a lot of effort, but I was being a lot more productive, and I was getting a lot better results. And I was feeling a lot better and a lot more in control of my life. And I thought, I need to find out what I'm doing. I need to figure this
Yeah,
out because it's working, and I want to make sure I don't stop doing it.
absolutely. I mean, what an interesting sort of series of events, right? And you're right. Often we grow up and we're I was like programmed or indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking, and you know, going back to your childhood and being surrounded by the church, and this is the way that we do it. You know, if you ask and you will receive, right? It was the kind of context in which we were told that as youngsters. You put that out to God or the universe or whatever, you will receive. Funnily enough, you know, you being obviously an inquisitive young man, going, I'm going to test this little
Yeah.
theory, and then testing that and going, well, that doesn't quite work, and then using your your observation to say, well, actually, all the people around me, they're not really that happy either. And funny how we then move to okay, well, now I'm going to try something else because maybe there's another answer lying somewhere else. So over that time, and then having that real humbling experience of, all right, well, you know, now I'm at rock bottom. I've lost everything. It's almost like bang, you've hit the reset button, and it's like, oh, let's just take this fella right back to zero, and see how he fares if we put him back there and see what he does now. And that being it's kind of that reset moment that allowed you to go, okay, let me take stock of what's going on here, and now what have I got to do? So looking back and thinking about those experiences, and sure, there would have been some component or some things that you would have done along the way that would have been amazing. They would have worked really, really well. But did you find that there was like some commonality, some common things that you saw throughout those instances? And having run, 18 businesses, there would have been things that you did really well, things that maybe they didn't go so well, and there were a couple of missing things. So, what were those missing things? What did you identify that was like, you know, that, my life is not going the way that it should be because I don't have this ingredient in it?
Well, of course, at the time, I didn't know what the missing ingredient was. And that's
Mm,
what made me continue to seek out new ideas, because I thought, well, maybe because the missing ingredient was being happy, really, and feeling unstressed. That is the missing ingredient, and it's all about how the brain works. But I didn't realize it at the time, and I kept chasing the next new idea. You know, someone would come along, wrote a book or did a seminar or whatever, and said, you know, if you want to be successful, try my technique, try my
mm,
process, you know, and I'm successful and I'm rich and I've got all these things, and you know, here's a couple of people who'll tell you how great I am. So I followed those people. They seem to have credibility. And of course, the interesting thing is, what I found out later, much later, is the reality is that not a lot of people get a lot of success by doing that. I mean, we think
mm,
that everyone else is far more successful and that all these techniques work for us. You know, the funny thing was, with a lot of these techniques and modalities or processes or ideas, if you like, or ways of doing things, was I really did try them. And I remember, you know, I wasn't one of those people who just went to a seminar and came away and thought, oh, that's good, okay, that's helped me a bit. Everything that the person at the seminar did, I worked to death. You know, if there was a
mm,
process and they said do this, I would go away and I would do it over and over and over again. I remember going to one, or it was a video seminar, and the person said, watch this particular segment every day for a month. Every day for a month. Now, not many people would do that. I did it. And he
mm-hmm.
said in the same seminar, listen to this recording every day. I listened to it every day, twice a day, for months, without a break. So just like I was testing God when I was a child, I'm going to try this for a
Good.
month. I
Mm,
really tried all these things, but they didn't quite work. So I thought, you know, what is the missing ingredient? And I kept looking for the next thing that was going to find that final piece of the puzzle that would bring it all together and give me the life I really wanted. And it was only after all this mess happened in my life that I did find the missing piece. And the missing piece is very simple. That's the tragedy, the tragedy, or the good
yeah.
part in another way. It's actually quite simple, and we have been taught this in various ways, but we've overlooked it completely. And that's what I do now. And it's all about this thing here called the brain.
Mm.
That's the
Isn't
missing
that
piece.
Totally. And isn't it really fascinating that, we're constantly seeking or trying to find the road to happiness? Happiness, it's over there. If only I can have that or do that, then I'll be happy. When in fact, what you were saying is, if you just decide today in this moment that you're going to be happy, then something really strange happens, right? And we're going to go there because it's happening in the brain as we're starting to realize that, and be comfortable with, I'm going to accept, I'm just going to be happy in this moment right now. So let's talk about that. Like, how does that start in the brain, and what are the components of the brain that we need? How do we understand what's going on up here,
Yeah.
and use that to our advantage?
Great. Well, because of course the problem is with what you just said, with just let go, accept, be happy now. You can't do that. It's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to do. And most people,
If
and,
only you could just go like that, right? Click your
yeah,
fingers and you'll
and
be
people
happy
say
right now.
that. Well, just have faith, just trust, just all of that. Don't worry about it. Just come back to now, to now, and focus. Now that's all true. That is what you should do. But how do you do it? That's the trick, because you can't do it by forcing it, and you can't do it by hope and determination and motivation and wanting it to happen. And the reason you can't do that is because you have a machine. You mentioned right at the beginning, your brain is a machine. It certainly is a machine. But like any machine, it works a certain way, because it's a bit like a car. If you said with your car, okay, I don't really know how to drive a car, but I know it's a machine designed to get me from where I am to somewhere else where I want to go. So, but I won't learn how to drive it. What I'll do is I'll just say, right, this car will work. I believe that my car will take me to where it wants to go, where I want to go. I will trust, and I will say this 1,000 times a day, my car will take me to where I want to go. My car will take. But if you haven't learned how to drive it, what's the point of that? You're just going to be standing looking at some empty hulk. And it doesn't matter how determined you are, how motivated you are. If you don't understand how that machine works, you're never going to be able to use it in the right way to get the result you want. And this is what I came back to after my experience, was that the only difference was I was doing something in a different way. And what I was doing was using this machine of my brain a different way. And to do that, to use it, you have to understand, just like with a car, you have to understand how it works. And when you understand how it works, you go, oh, well, of course, this is how I drive it. I wouldn't dream of doing it any other way. I mean, you wouldn't look at your car and say, the way to get this from here to from A to B, from where I am to where I want to go, I'll get behind it and I'll push the car because it's got wheels. So maybe that's the way you use it. I don't know, but it looks logical. So you get out and you put in all this enormous effort and struggle, and you determined to get it to where you want to go, and you push this car. Well, what happens? You wear yourself out. You don't get anywhere particularly. It's a huge struggle. And all you do is you become exhausted and stressed and tired. And then you say to yourself, I know the problem. I'm not strong enough. I haven't got enough muscles. So I'll go out and I'll learn how to be stronger, and I'll put in all this effort. And then I'll come back and I'll push even harder. It still doesn't work. So we have to understand that our brain, the first thing to understand is how powerful your brain is. Then that it is a machine and it's what it's designed to do. And thirdly, how to use it. And once you do that, that's all you need to know. Just like with a car, you don't need to know all of the intricacies of, what all the wires under the hood do and all of the different how it all works. You don't need to get a mechanics course to drive your car the right way. You just need to understand what it's designed to do, how it does it, and well, not even that it will do it, and your role in actually directing it, and what you need to do, what buttons and levers you need to push, which isn't complicated. And that's the great thing with the brain.
And I love that analogy of a vehicle, because it's the same thing, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, I can see my dishwasher over there, and if I decided I wanted to cook, tonight's dinner using the dishwasher, well, it looks like I could put a meal in there, and it gets hot. It probably could steam my vegetables, but it's probably not going to come out in the right way. So it's understanding what that tool or what that machine is actually used for and how to use it in the right way. So let's, for everybody, kind of break down, because there's obviously 4 different parts of this brain, this machine that we've got, and each component of that tends to do a different thing. So help everybody sort of understand, what our brain is made up of, and why does that actually matter? Why do those different components matter?
Okay, well, it's great that you bring this up about the 4 parts of your brain, because using them the right way is how you use this machine. But can I just back up and just make one quick point before we get on to that, which is really, really critical, which is the other thing that we never ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of our brain? What is it here to do? And we think, oh, it's just designed to keep you alive and, keep all your organs running and allow you to have thoughts so that you can, use the dishwasher and live your life. But it's so much more than that. That's not actually its purpose, or that's only a small part of its purpose. Because if you look at biologically, what is life, and we are biologically life as well, life has one purpose on this planet, and that is to survive and thrive. In other words, to do everything it can to ensure that it survives, to continue the species. And all biological scientists will tell you this is the purpose of life, to create more life. So your purpose, your biological purpose, is to create more life, is for you to be somebody who contributes to the survival of the species so that it continues. This is your biological function. Now, what's the best way you can do that? By being your best, by being your strongest, your healthiest, because when you're strong and healthy, you have the best chance of survival. You have the best chance of carrying on the species. But it's not just physically at your best that gives you that biological advantage, if you like, or that makes sure that gives you the best chance of surviving. It's also mentally, emotionally, spiritually at your best. That is a survival mechanism, is because when you're at your best spiritually, mentally, emotionally, what happens? You're most resourceful, you're most creative, you're most inspired, you're most motivated. You do the greatest things when you're feeling at your best mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Not when you're weighed down with problems. When you have stress and problems, what happens? You get depressed and you don't do anything. And this is a biological reason for that as well. So on a very real and practical sense, the purpose of your brain is to make you the best that you can be, because the brain is the tool that you've been given to live out your biological purpose. Because not only do you have a purpose biologically to be the best you can be, but you have been given everything you need to achieve that. I mean, nature would be crazy. It wouldn't make sense if it said, here's your purpose, but we won't give you anything to achieve it. And it has, and it's your brain. And your brain is just this vastly powerful machine, computer, if you like, that is designed with one purpose, and that's to make you the best that you can be. So that's the purpose of the brain. So if you're not the best that you can be, what's wrong? Is there something wrong in your brain? Probably not. But what's wrong is you're not using it the right way. Just like with a car, if it's not if it's not doing its job the right way, which is to get you where you want to go in a car, then it's because you're using it the wrong way. That's it. There's nothing wrong with the car. But you get in and you don't know which levers to push. So you're trying to push it, keep the handbrake on and not put it in gear and press something else, and it's not working for you. So you need to learn how to use it. So this is, I think, a really important concept, as you mentioned before, we're all chasing these other ideas, but that's like sitting in a car and someone comes along and says, you need air conditioning. You need a radio, a better radio than the one you've got. That'll make the journey better and more comfortable. You go, okay, I'll get all of these things, but you're still not driving it the right way. So you're still not really getting the result you want. It might give you a little bit of temporary relief and say, oh, well, maybe this is a good idea. But if you don't understand that, that's not what's going to do it. What's going to do it is understanding the machine you've got and using it the right way. And then you'll live out your biological purpose, which is being the best that you can be and not dealing with problems, because problems, stress, anything that stops you being the best you can be actually harms you. So how can it be your biological purpose? If your biological purpose is to survive and thrive, how can something that harms you be part of that? It doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah.
So we need to
I
understand this, I think.
Absolutely, and I recall actually, I think was reading or came across this piece of information. But for the likes of the Navy SEALs, someone in there said that generally speaking, the human uses maximum 40% of our brain. Our brain capacity, our ability with the brain that we have, and so therefore we're actually leaving. Can I use the word on the table? 60% of that capacity because of our inability to use it in the right way. So now that we've kind of established the fact that, gosh, this thing that we've got is so powerful, and for the most part, most of us are all born with something this powerful. It is just trying to understand, what are the components, and now how do I start to use that to my advantage?
Right, great. Well, then we come on to what the 4 parts of the brain are. And there's lots of I've done lots of research on this, and there's lots of technical words for the different parts of the brain, but I've really simplified this down into a model which we can use in a practical level, but it is science-based as well. And essentially the 4 parts of your brain are, the first part is what I call your thinking brain. And this is located on the top of your head. And this is where all of the information that you gather in your life, whether it be from your experiences, through your 5 senses, through your thoughts and ideas, it's all stored in the thinking brain. It's like a big library, a big database, if you like, of all of the information that you've gathered through your life. And this is also the part of your brain that's responsible for your ability to communicate and understand and communicate with other people and with the world. So that's your thinking brain. The second part of your brain, which is located just below that, is your feeling brain, your emotional brain. This is what creates the feelings in your life. And it does that through a special mechanism of producing chemicals that make you feel a certain way. And we call these hormones or neurotransmitters. You might have heard of that. And these are chemicals that when your emotional brain gives a signal about something, and I'll explain it a bit later about what that is and how it works, but it either makes you feel good or it makes you feel bad. You either feel happy, loving, grateful, all those things, and feeling okay, or you feel stressed, afraid, and worried and anxious. That's the role of your emotional brain. That's what that does, your feeling brain. The third part is your survival brain, or sometimes I call it also your mechanical brain. And this is at the back of your head. And this looks after really everything you don't need to think about to keep you surviving. So it's all the stuff that keeps your heart beating, your breathing, all of these things you don't think about, all of the organs functioning. That's all handled by your survival brain. And there's another really important function that the survival brain, as the name suggests, carries out. And that is, on the very odd occasion that you're faced with an immediate threat or danger to your survival, that something might harm you or kill you, your survival brain produces a response, which is sometimes called the fight, flight, or freeze response, to get you to react and do the first thing without thinking to protect yourself from that danger. So, of course, classic example, prehistoric times, of you're walking through the forest and a lion rushes out at you. So what do? Your brain says, there's a danger. It's actually your emotional brain that sends the message. It sends a message to you. You're facing danger. And the way it sends the message is it sends out chemicals to make you feel fear and anxiety and stress. That kicks in something in your survival brain called your sympathetic nervous system. And that gets you, that shuts down your thinking, and it gets you just to react to the danger. So the lion comes along, and instantly, without thinking, this reaction is you run away, or you fight it, or you shout for help, or whatever it is. Your brain just does something to help you get out of that immediate danger. It could be in modern times, you're walking along the street and the car comes the wrong way. You have to jump out of the way. Again, you're not thinking. So this is all part of your survival brain, because this is a reaction. It's not about your thinking, and it's not about anything else. It's simply a pure reaction from your brain to protect you from an immediate threat or danger. Now, there's a fourth part of your brain. And so they're the 3 sort of pretty well-known ones, but there's actually a fourth part of your brain that science has more recently discovered and started to research, and that's what I call the creative brain. And this is the part of your brain that gives you new ideas. It's where your creativity comes from, where your intuition, your gut feelings, you think, does this feel right? We often say this, does this feel right? Doesn't feel right? This feels perfect. You meet the person who you're going to marry and you just know. It's not a thinking thing. You just go, I'm going to marry that person. Or you walk into a house and say, I'm going to buy this house. Both of those things have happened to me. And you just know it. And there's not any logical, it hasn't come from previous ideas or thinking or anything like that. It's not on your goals list. You get these ideas. You also get awareness of things. You see things in a different way and you go, oh, I can see what's going on here. I can see the solution to this problem that I haven't been able to see before. I can see the solution to someone else's problem that they can't see. And it's all to do with how they're using their brain. So all of this stuff comes from this part of your brain called your creative brain. Now, remember we said at the beginning, two things. One is that your brain is this virtually infinitely powerful machine. We just don't realize it. And the second thing is, which we didn't mention, there's nothing random that happens in this world, in this universe. If what we think is random, what we think is luck or coincidence or synchronicity, from a different level of awareness, it's not luck at all. There can't be any luck or randomness in this universe, otherwise it wouldn't be here. So in actual fact, your creative brain, in addition to giving you all these ideas and the motivation to act on the right ideas and to stop doing the wrong things, it also brings you literally the right people, the right situations, the right circumstances, the right moments to help you be on your track to be the best that you can be. And this is quite an astounding thing to think about. But and when you think about all the really things that really shape your life, they're never the result of your goals list. You're sitting down, you're trying to figure it out. They're things that happen quite randomly and by accident. This is your creative brain at work. But here's the thing about these four parts of your brain. This is where it gets interesting. Your natural state is when your creative brain, the creative part of you, is in control. That's the part that operates the be the best you can be. It brings to you what you need. It gives you the ideas. It gives you the creativity. It gives you the solutions. And it keeps you on track, being the best that you can be and living a great life without problems. But there's only one time. So this is our natural state. This is the way we're supposed to live. And athletes, musicians, creators talk about this thing, being in the flow, being in the zone. Religion talks about being enlightened. This is all being in our creative state. It's when you're in the state where you're putting in effort, but it's not a struggle, and you're getting everything coming back to you that makes you feel loving, grateful, and aware of really a greater awareness of who you are. That's how you're supposed to live. But there's only one time you're not supposed to live like that, and that's when the lion comes running at you out of the jungle. So what actually happens in the brain is when you feel fear, when your emotional brain says there's a danger here, it takes all the resources away from anywhere else to focus entirely on solving that problem, on dealing with that immediate fear. And what's the thing that it does? It shuts down your creative brain. Because if you have a lion running at you, your imagination, your intuition, your big picture, your gratitude, you're looking at all of the things around you, none of that's going to help. It's going to be, in fact, it's going to make you get killed by the lion, because you have to react. So what we don't realize, the problem for all of us, nearly all of us, is that we live in this fear state nearly all of the time. And when we live in this fear state, when we feel anxiety, worry, stress, unless it's for an immediate danger, that's what the brain is designed to do. It's designed to be there only to deal with an immediate threat to your survival. But if you're in a state of fear, what's actually happening is your brain is telling you there is a threat to your survival when there isn't. And we're living in this fearful state. And what happens when you're in that fearful state? When you're feeling any anxiety, worry, or stress, you don't have access to your creative brain. So if you're trying to solve a problem when you're feeling stressed, anxious, and worried, you're never going to be able to do it because you've shut down the problem-solving part of your brain. And this is the big thing. And what I realized, I was trying to fix my life from a fear state. And my brain could never bring me all of the things that I needed to fix my life because I wasn't able to access that part of my brain because it was all shut down by being in this fearful state. And there's one other thing that happens when you're in this fear state is you imagine a lion running at you. you have to focus 100% on the problem, on the danger. You can't have your brain wandering off and looking at the trees and saying, oh, how beautiful the world is. Your brain has to be 100% focused on a problem. And this is what happens. So it shuts down your awareness. And this is what happened. This is what the world is like. Everybody thinks that there's a big problem in this world, that there are problems. And why is that? Because their brains are all focused on looking for problems, because that's all their brain can do. Their brain can't see the bigger picture of what is actually going on in their life and in their world and what could be going on. It's got to focus on all of the negative, on all of the problems. And if it starts to solve them, it's going to create more problems for you, because that's what your brain does. It's looking out. It can't, as I say, it's got to identify when the lion's there. Is there another danger? What's that sound? Is that dangerous? Is there a snake in the grass? So the real problem, and people don't realize this, is the enemy is fear. The minute you feel fear, your brain is telling you there's something threatening your survival, even if there isn't, because your brain, depending on we'll talk about why this is, but your brain is sending you the message that there's something that's a threat to your survival in your environment. It's going to get you into a reactive state, focusing on everything that's negative about you and your situation, your environment, and it's going to block off all of your ability, all of your creative ability to firstly solve that problem, see the big picture, and start to do the things and attract the things you need and deserve to live the life being the best you can be. It's as simple as that. That's driving the machine the wrong way.
Yeah, but it's interesting, right? Because when you think about it, like there have been so many books. I mean, one that comes to mind, Think and Grow Rich. And I mean, that is, think your way into richness, into greatness, and use your frontal brain, that thinking brain, to try and fix or solve a problem, or use your thinking brain to create something new. And like you say, that's then you're using the wrong part of your brain in the wrong way to try and get a result that you're never ever going to get, because that's not what that part of the brain is designed to do. And I liken that to, I mean, imagining, I'm a pilot in a fighter jet, and I'm running on engine number 2. Right? I'm trying to do the best I possibly can, but I'm using engine number 2. When in fact, to be able to, win this fight that I'm currently, maybe in as a fighter pilot, I actually need to be using engine number 1, because that gives me access to all of the other, boosters and what have you that I need to be able to move through and win whatever it is that I'm doing at that time. So now that we understand these 4 different components of our brain, and we understand really how powerful it is, but clearly there are some components of our brain that seem to be more I'm going to say in control for most than this creative part of our brain. And so what is it that we need to do to flick the switch, so to speak, and say, well, actually, I want to now tap into, and I know we talked about part of it is like move up, the fear piece kind of overtaking everything, but how do we flip that switch and say, well, now I want to really be able to tap in, I want to use that creative part of my brain. How does one do that? Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting thing, isn't it? There's really 3 components to how you can do this, but it's a bit like with a motor vehicle. Again, I come back to a car. You firstly have to understand how the car. Well, you first thing you need to understand is that this machine will do this job for you. It will do the job. You have to know that. So you have to know that the machine of your brain, it will do the job for you if you use it right. That's you can't doubt it, and that comes from learning to understand how your brain works. And so you have to, and I've done a lot of research on this, and I teach this in my podcast and in my coaching programs about how your brain really works. Because when you understand that, you think, why would I use it any other way? It's like with a car. So that's a major help to you, and the first thing you need to do is to understand how your brain works and what it's designed to do, and to know that it will do that job. And unfortunately, one of the problems from a when you're operating from your fear-based brain, one way to know when you're operating from that part of your brain is to want to know the answer to something that's a quick fix. Because again, your survival brain wants a quick fix. It wants, what's the way to get out of this problem right now? And unfortunately, this is what I realized so much of what I'd studied, and what, for me and for many other people, it was all about quick fixes, because you're starting off from the wrong place. You're starting off in a fear, anxious state to say, I need to know the answer to this to fix it. You're immediately not going to find the answer. This isn't a quick fix. So you need to understand that, and know, by understanding enough about your brain, that it will do the job for you, because with that comes trust rather than fear and understanding. So the second thing you need to do is you need to, as I say, start using it the right way. And instead of looking for quick fixes, you need to understand that the only enemy I have, the only thing stopping me from living my ideal life and using my brain the wrong way, is using fear the wrong way. And here's a really interesting thing. You know, I was brought up a Catholic, and you were brought up a Christian, what were you saying?
Well, my
that,
mum was a Christian,
okay.
Catholic family. So,
But what does it say in the Bible? I mean, the Bible is actually the best manual that exists for how to use your brain the right way. It's an instruction manual on how your brain works, but we don't realize this. Because what does it say in the Bible more than 360 times? Someone counted. It says, be not afraid. Do not be afraid. Have faith, trust. Now, it doesn't say that because it's some fancy idea. It's because if you're afraid, your brain's not working the right way. No, sure, be afraid when there really is a threat, when something is right there and it's going to kill you or hurt you. That's when you should be afraid. But watching the news and worrying and thinking about your life and getting all stressed about not achieving goals and wondering what you should do and trying to figure all this stuff out, that's all being afraid. That's not trusting. And when you do that, you're not using your brain the right way, and you don't have access to all these resources. So when you realize that, once you understand your brain, that the enemy of your brain, the thing that's stopping it working properly, is fear, you're going to do everything you can to remove fear from your life, from how you feel. And one of the ways you do that, the first way, after you understand how your brain works, there's only two things you do. And in my coaching program, I go through all of these three things. Firstly, understanding your brain so that you go, oh, why would I use it any other way? And secondly, the second thing you need to do is identify, and as much as you can, eliminate anything that's coming into your life that's switching you into feeling anxiety, stress, worry, or fear. And a lot of the time, we're not aware of what's coming into our life that's doing this. But this is like with your physical body. If someone gave you a glass of hydrochloric acid and said, I'll give you $1 million if you drink this, you're not going to drink it. Why not? I'll give you $10 million. Well, it doesn't matter how much money they give you. You're not going to drink it because you know it's going to damage you. But what we don't realize is that when we put stuff into our brain that makes us feel bad, that's the same as drinking hydrochloric acid. It's not going to do us any good. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter how justified we feel that we should know this stuff or whatever. And all of those thoughts come from your fear-based brain anyway, and not realizing the big picture. You don't need to know anything that's negative. Actually, if you need to know something, rely on the other 99% of the population who'll tell you, who are fixated on everything that's negative. They'll tell you if the bomb is about to drop on your doorstep. You know, but when you're aware of this, you're going to be very, very mindful of what you're putting into your brain, because you're thinking, if this makes me feel bad, it's not the way I'm supposed to operate, and it's going to block all my ability to live the best life I can have. That's it. It doesn't matter, as I say, it doesn't matter how motivated you are, how determined you are, how whatever you are. That's just the way it works. So that's the next step, is to identify and say, if it's a conversation that I'm not enjoying, if it's being with somebody that's making me feel bad, if it's listening to something on the news or the television or whatever that makes me feel bad, it doesn't matter what it is. You've got to say, this is like hydrochloric acid. This is damaging me. This negativity. It's blocking off me being the best I can be. So that's a practical thing. And I've in my program, I really go through in detail about all the different things that many of which people aren't aware of, most of which. But you have to start to say, that is the enemy, and I don't care. And I'm sorry, I'd love it if it was. It doesn't. I'm not trying to sound heartless or compassionate, because people are probably saying, "Oh, but it's my wife who's negative, or my husband, or whatever," But you really need to think about this. Is this damaging you? And the third thing you need to realize is, once you start doing that, what have I already got in there that my brain is interpreting things to put me in a fear state, when it's really got confused. And that's the result of all the stuff we've already put into our brain, into this thinking brain, and into our emotional brain, because those two work. We haven't got time to talk about it, but those two work together to define what is dangerous or safe for you. That's like your emotional brain is the gatekeeper. It decides, and it decides based on how you've sort of wired it or how you're using it. So this is why I've developed a process called neurostate rebalancing, which actually works on getting your brain to see the difference between an imaginary fear and a real danger, something that's imaginary and something that's real. And when you can do that, then you can start really accessing your creative brain, and you start to see things in a different way. You start to see the truth about what's really going on in your life, who you really are, and you start to make the right decisions. You start to stop making the wrong decisions. And what's the opposite of fear? Is faith and belief. But faith isn't just a blind thing, because I do a lot of marriage and relationship coaching, and people come to me when people are in trouble in their marriage and say, "I really believe that God will save my marriage." They don't really believe. They're in fear. True faith comes from awareness and understanding of who you are. That comes from operating in your creative brain. So you can't fake this. You can't just be determined. You can't say things 100 times a day. I believe, I am happy, I am rich. It doesn't work that way, because this is all built on a fear thing. You have to literally get your brain moving into the state. So you don't just think it, you know it on a very deep level. And that's when your life, that's what happened to me. And that's what I help people do through my coaching, is you move to that state. Because when I lost everything, what I actually did was I gave up trying. I thought, I don't know what to do. I give up. I don't
surrender.
But I trust surrender. But it's easy. And people say, "Oh yes, just surrender." But it's not that simple, is it? You actually have to get your brain to surrender. You can want to surrender and say you're surrendering, and you can drink something or smoke something to make you feel better that you are surrendering. But you only really surrender when you move your brain into this other state, by changing the way it's working, by getting the machine to work that way. And again, it says in the Bible, "Give no thought for tomorrow. Trust. You will be looked after. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, or wear." Look at the lilies of the field. How beautiful are they? How much more beautiful are you? They're looked after. Won't you be looked after? So again, this is all an instruction on how to use our brain. And you can't fake it. You have to get your brain working in a different way, so that you know it and you do it naturally, rather than just trying to believe it, and thinking by forcing it somehow one day it's going to work. I tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah. No, I mean, like you say, you end up being the person behind the car, trying to push it and trying to, use all the force you can to try and get the thing to move, when in fact all you had to do was use it in a different way, in the way in which it was intended. Get in the car, use the key, turn the key, and off you go. Not quite as simple as that, but that's much simpler process than trying to push that car up some crazy hill. So it was interesting, because as you were talking about sort of the second component of this, and eliminating the things that or identifying, hey, these are the things that are not making me feel good. These are toxic, instances that I really need to start eliminating. Reminding me of something that I actually saw the other day, and I think it was Warren Buffett was talking about it, and he gave an example, and it was to a group of young kids, and he said something like, you guys, I'm going to use a different scenario here, but I'm going to say, to feed yourself, which we know we have to do, right? We have to nourish our body. You are going to be given a seed. That seed is going to grow a tree, and it will create all the food you ever need in your life, but you're only ever going to be given that one seed to be able to plant, and you must take care of that. Otherwise, if you don't, you will have no food to nourish your body, and you won't be on this earth for very long. So what would you do? You would do everything you possibly could to give that tree everything it needed to be able to grow and to be to thrive in its environment, because you knew that your life depended on it. But yet, when we think about our own bodies, and in which case, same scenario, you're only given one, so one brain. But yet what we do is we allow all sorts of toxic information, toxicity to come into our body and into our mind. And if we treated it in the same way that we would, if we thought about it in the same way we would have if it were a tree and it was that seed that you only got one of, that was going to nourish your body and was going to enable you to create the life that you always wanted, you might look at things quite differently. You might start, working on our brain and feeding it all the right things and being very mindful and aware of what we allow in. I
Totally.
thought that
And
was fascinating.
that's a good analogy. But what's really going on when someone tells you this tree will provide for you if you just plant it? They're saying to you, this is how it works, and you don't need to believe it, or you don't need to, you don't question it, do you? You go, well, if that's the way it works, that's what I'll do. That's the way it works. But the problem is with our brain is we question it. Because we don't understand how it works, we question, and we don't trust. If you really knew that your brain was this infinite machine whose sole function is biologically designed to give you a really happy, perfect life for you, you just need to trust it. You would give up on all these things like trying to write down goals, trying to figure out what you want, trying to solve problems. There's been lots of research done that the more you focus on trying to solve a problem, the less able you are to solve it. There was some research done at a university in London recently that I was reading about that when you're focusing on a problem, you're producing gamma waves, an excess of gamma waves in your brain. And that blocks, again, what I've been saying, it blocks off your problem-solving ability. So with that tree that it's going to grow. You don't worry about it. Okay, you see, and they say, what do you need to do? You need to water it every day. Okay, I'll water it every day. And you don't you don't light a fire under it, or you don't put
pesticides on it, or
you don't do that because you trust and well, that's the way it works. But we don't do that with our brain, do we? We go, oh, well, that's a nice idea, and I'd like to trust, but I'm still trying to figure out what I need to do, and I still need to learn something new. And my marriage coaching, people say to me, but I can't give up on this relationship. They might have been in a toxic marriage for 20 or 30 years. Some people, everyone has been telling them for years, you're in the wrong marriage. But what's stopping them from giving up or not giving up? What's stopping them from moving on, which is the right decision? It's fear. And in business, I used to do this all the time. I used to work with salespeople who in my sales force who just weren't very good. And I used to put more effort into them than I did into the good people, because I was afraid of letting them go, or maybe I felt I couldn't find someone as good, or I needed to fill that position and there was nobody available. But none of those things work, and this is because we're in this fear-based part of our brain where we're trying to figure stuff out. We're trying to fix problems, work on things. We're not trusting and letting go. If we knew that, just like the end of your marriage, if you end that, there's a much better one coming along for you. If you knew that, you wouldn't hang around. If you knew with your business, the part of your business that's causing you a problem and you're trying to make work in it and you're struggling to make it work and it's not working, which are all signs that it's not meant to be, if you knew that, well, I'll just get rid of that. Something better will show up because that's the way my brain is designed. Then you would do that naturally. You wouldn't do all this struggle, and you wouldn't make bad decisions. I used to make some terrible decisions because they were based on fear. I was worried, if I don't do this business deal, if I don't get into a relationship with this person, there won't be something better come along. And you think, well, I'll make it happen. I'll make it work. I know how to, and I'll figure out how to make it work, and I'll get some more information and I'll learn how to do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn how to do things in business or your life, but when it's a struggle, instead of making it a struggle, you just need to say, well, I know the best thing's going to show up for me. And the beauty of it is, it's usually unexpected things. And you go, wow, how did that happen? Where did that person come from? Why am I doing this all of a sudden? This is fantastic. I never dreamt I'd be doing this. And that's your creative brain saying, this is the way your life's supposed to go. You know, your creative brain has access to your DNA. In fact, your DNA, maybe we don't have time to talk about DNA, but it's a blueprint for who you are. It's got 250 million pieces of information in every cell of your body about who you are. Now, you don't know 250 million things about yourself, but your creative brain does. This part of your brain does. It's not your thinking brain. You have to get that clear. It's not about your thoughts and thinking. This is your higher creativeness or creativity that knows, and its job is to take those 250 million pieces of information and put out the best version of that that's going to have the greatest chances to survive. So if you're trying to figure out what to do and how to do things and what's going to make you happy, I used to do that. I used to go to all sorts of goal setting seminars, sit down and write down what you want. I tell you now, you don't know what you want. You know what you think you want. You think you want $1 million or your business to go well or this relationship to work, but you don't know. But your creative brain knows, and it's waiting for the chance to say, get out of the way, let me do the job, and you just put in the effort where you're supposed to and do the right things, stop doing the wrong things, and it'll work out fine. But don't try and figure out what tomorrow is, what the 10th step is, and where you're going to go. You can't know that. Just the way
this
works.
it's such a, and it should be a fascinating subject, right? Our brain is a fascinating thing to, use the word dissect and understand, and when we do, great things can happen. So I want to make sure that I'm sure that people are listening to today's show and going, gosh, this is fascinating. I want to know more about this. So I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can get more of Liam, where they can learn more about this. And the very first place I would say is there's a podcast. So let's tell everybody about where they can find you. Like if they want to go and listen to the Using Your Brain for Success podcast, where can they find you, Liam?
Everything's on my website, which is quite simply my name, just liamnaden.com. All my podcast episodes are there.
Screen. Beautiful. So guys, if you want to get more of Liam, go to Liam Naden, Naden.com. You'll find his podcast episodes there, and obviously you'll also find a whole lot of information about Liam and how you can also get in touch with him to continue this conversation, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. And like Liam, if you're finding yourself, we're having, problem after problem, and maybe you're not in a good place right now, but you're wanting to figure out this thing called life and figure out, how do I use this brain of mine in the right way to be able to get success, that I would encourage you to reach out to Liam and continue your conversation with him and see where that goes. But I want to say thank you very much for a really interesting conversation, Liam. I want to let everybody know it's kind of cool, because I love what you're doing right now, going from New Zealand, I'm going to say taking a bit of a leap of faith and going, hey, I'm just gonna do something a little bit different, and traveling around on several different boats over several years. I'm very envious. I think it's fantastic that you're doing that sort of stuff. Sitting right now on a canal in France has got to be a whole lot of fun. So I want to wish you and your partner, all the best with what you're doing over there. I'm sure you're going to continue, to have a huge amount of success and enjoy life as you do it.
I hope so.
Well, no. I have no doubt that you will be. Yeah. Well, look, I want to let everybody know too that if you want to tune in to more episodes of the Unlock Show here with me, Tracy Wilson, then you need to tune in 10 a.m. Brisbane time on Wednesdays and Fridays. You might have figured out already that, behind me, it's getting a little bit dark. So today's episode, because Liam is in France right now and I'm on the Gold Coast of Australia, we actually recorded this version. So by the time you guys get to see it, I'll probably be traveling around New Zealand, and Liam will be, traveling on his boat somewhere else. But I want to say thank you very much to you guys for listening and tuning in and being avid listeners of the Unlock Show. You'll know that next week, either Wednesday or Friday, we'll be having some more amazing guests, and I'll be back Friday for another episode of the Unlock Show, and I'll be sharing with you how you too can unlock some secrets to business, family, and life. But for now, go away, live your life unlocked, because as you guys know, I say there is just no other way. All right, guys, have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you guys again on another episode. Bye for now.